In terms of other running back pickups, we'll move over to Justice Hill. I just feel like I haven't given this guy his flowers quite enough yet. With 51, 53, and 40% of the snaps so far this year, he's been heavily involved in every single game plan, including last week when they had the lead almost the entire way of that game. He's still, Justice Hill, mixed in for 40% of the snaps, and the fantasy production has not been insane. 11.5, 5.2, 7.4 PPR points. It's not nothing, though. He's getting you something usable. And ultimately, when I make my handcuff list every week, I'm just like, why did I forget Justice Hill this week? Probably a top 5 handcuff at this point, with Keaton Mitchell still a ways away from returning. Should anything strike with the well above 30 at this point, Derrick Henry with the craziest workload. Only Zeke has more touches actively in the NFL. And I know Henry looking great. What a smashing performance this last week against the Cowboys. Doesn't look close to a breakdown at all, but you never know at that advanced age, that type of carry load, should something happen. We just saw Justice Hill get a 2-year, $6 million contract. This team clearly loves him, and why wouldn't they? He's now averaging, again, 13% target share. Very encouraging usage there as a pass catcher. Just another one of those very high upside handcuffs with benefits. Could start him in a pinch and would be a every week starter if something does happen to Derrick Henry. But an even more available handcuff with benefits right now, Emanuel Wilson, 4'4", 540 at 230 pounds. We're talking about a size speed demon. 42.1% college dominator rating, which accounts for how much of your yardage and scores from your total team offense did you account for. It's 94th percentile. The fact that this guy nearly had 50% of his team's yards and touchdowns. Now, granted, it was Fort Valley State, so rise up. Yeah, what a huge level of competition and play, but you can't fault the guy. What he did, he rose to the occasion. It was a level of competition. You can't fault the guy for just destroying the ones that were across, lining up and doing his job. Ultimately ripped that long receiving touchdown this past week. I put him on here just because, one, he's already playing 35-ish, 40% of the snaps right now in a very valuable Packers offense, a top 10, even without Jordan Love, with Malik Willis at the helms these last couple of weeks. And Jordan Love looks like he's ready to return as early as this week. I think we can right away thrust this offense into the top 10, maybe even top 5 units in the entire league. It's a great line, very quality zone running scheme, which Emanuel Wilson has always been a great fit for, according to all the beat writers coming into college, all the scouting reports talking about his acceleration, his one cut and go, which again, you saw on that receiving touchdown this week. Something happened to Josh Jacobs. We got Marshawn Lloyd on the short-term IR, just looking like a humongous bust and flop so far this year. The guy does bring some juice to the table, but if he's never going to be healthy, well, it's going to be Emanuel Wilson as the clear number 2. We know A.J. Dillon is done for the year as well. So if something happened to Josh Jacobs, who has popped up on the injury report both weeks so far, week 2 and week 3, obviously gutting it out and looking solid. This is not a indictment of Josh Jacobs, but dealing with some workload, the hammy issues, things popping up already. So ultimately, if he ever missed time, Emanuel Wilson would be a shoo-in for top 15 running back weekly value and looking just real solid. Another one of those, again, handcuffs with benefits. You got to love those guys. Now, another 2%. Yes, who's out there in less than 3% leagues? Well, we got a bunch of them for you this week. Roschon Johnson, only 2% rostered right now, but this is as much an indictment on DeAndre Swift as it is an endorsement for Roschon Johnson. So let's cover both ends of that barrel here. Swift dead last right now in rush yards over expected per attempt, dead last in success rate as a runner, dwindling usage as a result. Sees a season low 52% of the snaps, 46% rushes, and 50% routes, 7% targets. Again, for a normal back, that's actually not the end of the world usage, but this is from week 1 to now week 3, just steady decline, down 20% from what he was starting at the beginning of the year. It reminds me so much of Miles Sanders and those Panthers last year, where Sanders just got outplayed by Chuba Hubbard and quickly lost that starting job despite getting the bag. No Swift, the money's there, but I don't see this team continuing to roll it out that way. And Roschon comes in for the first time of the year, 38% of the snaps, 29% of the routes here, and a 9% target share, beating out DeAndre Swift there. And also, even despite seeing less snaps, 10.2 fantasy points in PPR leagues for Roschon compared to 6.2 for DeAndre Swift. Doing some decent damage there with, again, 8 carries, 30 yards, but then also 4 catches on his 5 targets for 32 yards, 62 total yards on just 12 touches. Way better than anything we've seen from DeAndre Swift. And Khalil Herbert only playing 10% of the snaps. I do think if they do ultimately bench Swift, Herbert would get involved 50% of the goal line touches so far. He'd likely monopolize that short yardage work. But I think Roschon, if anyone has true 3-down upside here, it would likely be him. So I think a 2% rostered at least. Give this guy a look in your deeper leagues and maybe even shallow leagues. I could definitely see him taking over. What is up, you fantasy wolf? Thanks so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, share your thoughts in the comments, check out some more videos, and join the newest Wolfpack by subscribing below.